Welcome back, everyone. It is the 2023 Week 1 show From the Stands College Football Show. We got some usual suspects in the house. To my left, we have Mr. Andy Hopper, coming out of Illinois, our Illinois fan. And to my right here, Mr. Tom Scavetta, our native Notre Dame fan. How's it going, boys? Andy, how are you doing up there?
I'm doing great, dude. I'm so fired up. It's so good to be back. Week 1 is upon us. Week 0 was cool. It's always good to have football back. The matchups weren't too great. Can't believe Hawaii blew that chance to tie it against Vandy, but they covered, so that's all I care about. But a long story. It's so good to be back. I'm happy to be here with you boys.
Best season in all of sports, college football season. Tom, how are you doing? You're already 1-0, so I think you're happy, I'm sure.
Yep, we are the best team in the nation right now. Live for the show. Love it every single year that we do this. 3 guys from 3 different parts of the country chopping up wood over one common denominator, and that's our love for college football. So, Brian, thanks again for having me this season, and looking forward to getting into it.
Of course. And we will get right into it with, like you said, it was a short week, but we'll do a quick weekly recap. Tom, your team played, so I guess we'll start with you because you had a nice little W there.
Yeah, I mean, the Irish don't lose in Ireland, right? 42-3. Was a little disappointed it wasn't 60-3, but let me tell you something. 8 total drives for Notre Dame, 6 touchdowns, scored touchdowns on their first 5 drives. And how about transfer QB Sam Hartman in his 6th collegiate season? 4 touchdown passes, just 5 incompletions, over a 150 passer rating. And how about rocking that shillelagh? He rocked that. I don't think Iron Eagle's son knew what that was, but he's rocking the shillelagh weapon there. And Notre Dame finally has an elite college quarterback. This is a 24-year-old man throwing to kids. He's closer in age to us than some of his own teammates. So that's how old he is. And offensive line is still the offensive line, boys. 0 sacks. You might think I'm going to bring up the tight ends. I'm not, because not a single tight end caught a pass for Notre Dame. This could potentially be a new offensive era with Tommy Rees departing for Alabama. Audric Estime pounded the holes all game, 191 rushing yards as a team. We saw Jeremiah Love, the Love Shack, they call him, got a piece of the pie. Jabrian Payne, all those guys. And Jaden Greathouse, 2 touchdown receptions. Very excited for him. And, Ty Lavatai couldn't get much going for the midshipmen. And not to mention, boys, Notre Dame, 0 turnovers and just 1 penalty. Disciplined football for Marcus Freeman's club, and I'm excited to be 1-0, but there's much more work to be done. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. It's Navy.
It is just Navy, but it is a W as well. Andy, not much action, but what do you think of the little appetizer we had in week 0 there? Can you hear me?
I can't hear him.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. First blunder of the season, boys.
Start them early.
Yeah, start them early. So I'm gonna talk about the game I mentioned earlier, Vandy and Hawaii. This game had everything. All right, so there was a weather delay. By the way, Vandy is like in the middle of, renovating their stadium, and it is not done yet. They are still playing in said stadium, so their video board. Did you guys see this?
No.
Was being suspended by 2 cranes and just waving in the wind. Like that thing is going to fall on somebody and somebody's going to get real hurt. But anyway, this actually turned out to be a great game. 35-28 is the final score. Vandy gets the win at home. The story for me in this game was the quarterback battle. These guys were slinging it. Braden Schrager for the Rainbow Warriors, 27 for 35, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did throw 2 picks, which were unfortunate, but it seems like Coach Chang has found his quarterback for Hawaii. And then on the Vanderbilt side of the ball, A.J. Swan had a very nice game himself, 19 for 30, 258 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And guys, I have an early nomination for college football name of the year. That's been a recurring theme on this show for us over the years is dudes with awesome names. Hawaii's got one. Wide receiver, Pafele Ashlock. 7 receptions, 127 yards, and a tutty. That is a name to watch out for, literally, because it is so fun to say. Pafele Ashlock for the Rainbow Warriors. But Hawaii had an opportunity, 2-minute drill at the end of the game to tie this one up, and unfortunately they couldn't make it happen. But this was a great football game to start off the year in week 0 after a pretty underwhelming slate.
Yeah, give me that name one more time. Let me hear it.
Pafele Ashlock.
Love it. The performance was to match as well.
Mhm.
So you gotta, if you got a name like that, you gotta live up to it. Mine, Tom. Obviously, we know you guys are good, all right. And you got Sam Hartman now. Probably the best quarterback you guys have had in at least a decade. Do you agree with that sentiment? Yeah. So, I mean,
Hmm.
if you're the rest of college football, the one thing that stopped Notre Dame from being like a top 2 scary team every year was the lack of an elite quarterback. I don't know if I say Hartman is like elite, but that's a really good quarterback on an already really good team. So that's going to be a team to watch for sure. But my go-to game here, Massachusetts versus New Mexico State. Why, you ask? Why Massachusetts, one of the worst teams in all of college football? Uh, they beat New Mexico State 41-30 in week 0. Did a little bit of research here, and as far as I can tell, this marks the first time in school history they have ever started the season with a win over an FBS school. That goes all the way back to at least 1996, which is as far back as the stats page on their school sports website goes. So as far as I'm concerned, that's entirety of school history right there. 96, they get their first win over New Mexico State. Not a great team, but historic moment, I guess, if you're a Massachusetts Minuteman fan. That will move us into our first segment of the year here. We have fourth and short. We're going to do 4 quick topics here. I mean, we had, 6-8 months of offseason, so they're all pretty interesting coming into it. We'll start with our first down here on fourth and short. The Pac, what? Pac what? Pac-12, Pac-8, Pac-4? We don't know what we're looking at here. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on this crumbling conference, just absolutely crumbling to the ground. And do you think the Pac-12 will survive after the end of this 2023 season? Andy, we'll start with you here.
Yes. No, they won't.
Uh-oh.
I'm saying yes because you brought up UMass and their quarterback has an awesome name. Clemson transfer Tyson Pomenchaw. Put that on the fucking board too. He had a great game. UMass has a Clemson transfer quarterback. That's funny to say. I think he also played at Georgia Tech. But anyway, speaking of the Pac-12, yeah, there's no shot that they survive this. I think, everybody's leaving, and now basically what you're going to have left is Oregon State and Washington State. And for those 2 schools at this point, the best move, in my opinion, is to latch on to the Mountain West and join them, or see if you can combine and make it the Pac West. I mean, at this point, if it's just Washington State and Oregon State, I think you just have them join the Mountain West and forget the Pac-12. But it is just a mass exodus, man. I just don't know how they recover. I think currently at this point, Cal and Stanford are still members going forward, but a lot of talks about them joining the ACC, which totally makes sense to add them to the Atlantic Coast Conference. But I just don't see how they recover from this.
All right, Tom, they surviving after 2023?
Absolutely not. I think last year we had a segment on one show called Pac-12 Seconds. It might be Pac-2 Seconds this year, or next year, I should say. Those 4 schools Andy mentioned, yeah, I mean, and then you have USC and UCLA, 2 powerhouses joining the Big Ten, right? Oregon's also joining that conference, I believe.
Oregon and Washington.
Utah.
Yep.
Oregon and Washington, okay. And then Utah, right? Back-to-back Pac-12 champs, by the way. They're joining the Big 12. So if the Pac-12 collapses, that leaves, I believe, 9 FBS conferences. And the whole college football playoff model is delayed until this realignment is complete, right?
Yep.
You can't expand to 12 teams. It really screws that up, The only option that the Pac-12, I think, can explore is if you go after teams like a Boise State, a UNLV, San Diego State. But will you get them? And that's a lot of movement and shuffling around. The conference is done.
Right.
Yeah.
And Tom, to piggyback off that, so yeah, you go after those teams, or let's say Oregon State or Washington State joins that conference. They go from a revenue share for the TV deal of like $30 million to I think $4 million overnight. Like this is a program killer for these schools. It's devastating. I mean, we're just going to keep seeing this happen with all this money being thrown around in these major conferences, and the realignment is, what happens to, let's say, a school like Northwestern or Rutgers or something in the Big Ten, or some of those like a Vanderbilt in the SEC. What happens to these schools when this conference alignment? I shouldn't say when it takes over. It is already taken over. We have multiple teams in multiple major conferences all making moves as of next year. now. So the college football landscape is rapidly changing. It seems like we say that every year, guys, but I mean, I think this year more than any is true. And I guess I'm just curious to see what else they pile on top of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, you guys covered it super well. This is just really embarrassing. I think if you're on any level of, I don't know if they call them like executives, but everyone that from the commissioner down that helps run the Pac-12 and all their media deals and stuff, it's just a complete embarrassment. To talk about the 30 million number that you threw out there, they
wanted 50.
Yep, yeah.
They were negotiating a new deal,
Yep.
and they were offered 30 again. And he brought it back to the commissioners, and they were like, "Yeah, no, we want more. We want 50."
I don't know how you can counter. In no one's mind did anyone think the Pac-12 had any negotiating power left at all. Like, they were getting scraps, and you take those scraps. Like, if you want a media deal, you're taking what you're given. 30 million would have put them on par with the ACC, which would be a hell of a deal considering what's been going on. And their first thought was, you know what, I think we can get 50, which would have put them on par with, I think, like just under the Big Ten.
Right.
Yeah.
They saw the Big Ten, and they saw the SEC money getting thrown around. They're like, well, we deserve that too. It's like, that's not how it works. Like, your counter is, no, we want 50, and then you just got fucking laughed out of the meeting, and you're getting nothing.
They said ESPN literally just left the negotiations after that. I'm sure they were laughing all the way back to the ESPN headquarters, right up by you, Tommy. But we will move on to our next question here. It is second down. Jim Harbaugh will be serving a suspension. It has been a very odd sequence of events here. He had apparently agreed to a 4-game ban with the NCAA. It was being reported very widely that he would miss the first 4 games of the season. Then out of nowhere, a few weeks ago, decides he's going to try and fight it. And then about 2 weeks ago, Michigan says, now we're going to self-impose a 3-game ban ourselves. So, Tom, I know you hate Michigan, so we'll start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on this scenario? And I guess, who are there winners or losers in this situation? Like, what has just happened?
I don't even want to say the short-term losers are Michigan, because the NCAA can come back in 2024 and maybe soften the potential ruling that they're holding, because there's still a ruling coming on this situation. The 3-game self-imposed ban is pretty much Michigan's way of saying, all right, let's, take the camel off the back here a little bit and try to soften this blow, right? Basically what happened, for those of you folks watching may not know, during the COVID-19 dead period, there was on and off campus recruiting going on at the University of Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh was at the center of that. And technically it was against the NCAA rule book. And now, since they went against the rules and violated that, regardless of what your opinion might be on it, Michigan now has to do this. They have to add 84-year-old Jack Harbaugh, Jim's dad, back to the coaching staff while he serves his 3-game suspension. Jack, by the way, served as an assistant for Michigan back in the 80s. The timing is lovely for this. Jim returns for the Big Ten opener against Rutgers, so there's a little doot-doot. And then I believe offensive coordinator Sharon Moore also gets suspended for 1 game on top of this. So that's interesting. So in Michigan's opener, it'll be DC Jesse Minter serving as the head coach. Then for game number 2 of the season, the first half, Jay Harbaugh is the head coach, and the second half of the second game, Mike Hart, former player, will be the head coach. That makes no sense to me personally. And then Moore coaches the final non-conference game. What kind of algorithm is this? I don't quite understand it, and maybe that's why Michigan continues to choke in the college football playoff every year.
Got him. Andy, what are your thoughts here?
So, yeah, Tom, you hit on it. So it was COVID times. From what I understand, there was a couple recruits that were taking an unofficial visit to the Michigan campus. They were going to be there. Harbaugh explicitly, per NCAA rules, is not supposed to be there. He says, fuck it, they're here. I'm going to see them. They go and they go out to eat at a place on the Michigan campus. They get burgers. He's Jim Harbaugh, so he doesn't have to pay for it. But what the NCAA got him for on the receipt was he tipped. He left a fucking tip. He did not pay for the burgers. It was because the only way they got him on this receipt was because he left a tip. That's how they knew he was there with the recruits. Like Tom says, whether you agree with it or not, he did technically break the rules. He's got to serve the suspension. Very weird situation that it was 4 games. Now it's 3 games. Oh, yeah, my son gets to coach the first half of the second game, and my dad is now the special assistant to the head coach. I don't know. They're Michigan. They think they're better than you. no matter who you are. Which, yeah, Tom, that's funny. I mean, I don't know. They are one of the favorites in the Big Ten. I actually think they might be the best team in the Big Ten. There's a lot of hype around Penn State this year. Obviously, Ohio State brings a lot of people back. I've got to take about them later that I think you guys will find pretty interesting. That I'll save. But yeah, on this whole situation, it's kind of like, oh, they're Michigan. Of course, it's always just going to be a slap on the wrist, no matter what they do.
Yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head. This whole situation is still just kind of also a mess. Like we were just talking about the Pac-12 being a mess. But I mean, I guess the one thing I'll say is if you're Michigan, and like you said, Tom, the NCAA can come back and give him more games. I don't know why you wouldn't just go back to the initial 4 that they're going to give him, because they start out with 4 straight cupcakes in a row. This week 1 game is probably, I would say, the hardest of the 4. Maybe Rutgers, I guess, in game number 4. But for a team like Michigan, they're all 4 cupcakes. So, I mean, it's not like his presence is going to win or lose any of those games. If they lose one of those games, it's because the players' heads weren't in the game themselves. So they should have just got as many out of the way as possible. And even if the NCAA tries to go super strict and say like 6 or 8 games, he's already over halfway done. So that's a little confusing to me. But I did, initially when I heard this, I thought this was like a super nice 4D chess move here by the khaki assassin. All the rumors of him leaving college football and going to the NFL in the near future, or at least, him verbalizing that a few times, he doesn't have to serve it if he goes to the NFL. So I thought, hell, what a perfect way. You don't take their agreement, you fight it. It's not going to be over before the end of the season. Like, they're not going to decide before the season's over. So if they get to the Natty, he can win it, sail off into the sunset, never serve the suspension, and then ride off to the NFL, where he'd probably get creamed, but, at least you don't serve those games. But yeah, just a really wild situation. But I think it was probably smart on the administration's side to give him those 3 games. We'll move on here to third down, and we have our next question, which is sports documentary fever. We have a lot of documentaries all over the gamut, from Netflix to HBO, covering sports topics. I want to know, who do you guys want to see in the next hit documentary show around a college football player, sport, team story? What would be your go-to, Andy?
Okay, so first of all, if you haven't yet, watch the BS High documentary. It is absolutely insane how big of a scumbag Roy Johnson is, the head coach and the founder of Bishop Sycamore, who, by the way, is trying to do it again. Just absolutely wild how this man can look directly into people's eyes and lie to them and smile in their face, knowing he is 100% full of shit. Anyway, documentary is wild. Cannot recommend that one enough. Who I'd like to see. Is it okay if I have multiple answers, Brian? Or
Go
do you
for
just
it.
want me to stick to one? Okay.
Go as many as you want.
I'd love to see a documentary on Mike Leach, just of how influential he was to, one, how a lot of offenses in college football look today and like right now, the formations and sets and plays that people are running are direct influences from shit that he came up with. It would be cool to see, talk to, just guys that played for him, coaches that worked for him, all the amazing stories that you just hear about this guy. Would be incredible. I think would make for a great documentary. Second answer would be a documentary on Nick Saban in Alabama, just how he kind of runs that shit. I think it'd be super interesting to see how he runs the program, and then just the lineup of former players that you could get for interviews of this guy would be absolutely insane. And I'd love to just get him in front of a camera with
Coaches,
too. And coach, exactly. Just like his footprint, his handprints are all over football in general. So just to see a guy as polarizing as him, like up close and personal, I think would be great. And then number 3, the last one, a documentary about Reggie Bush at USC would be fucking awesome.
Ooh, that would be nice.
The Johnny, I did like the Johnny Manziel one. I know there was a lot of stuff they left out. He's compared to Reggie Bush a lot, where it's like, well, if Reggie got his Heisman taken away, how the fuck did Johnny Football get away with the stuff he was doing and not get anything done with him? But if Reggie Bush played at USC today, or in the NIL era, I should say, he would be one of the top earners. So I just think that'd be cool to see that story. Plus, they were an absolute fucking powerhouse during that time, too. So, I mean, him and Pete Carroll and Matt Leinart and that whole crew, I think would be a really cool doc.
That was a solid lineup there. And Netflix, if you're watching, send this man some money. There's your producer right there for about 6 documentaries. Tom, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, Andy mentioned the Manziel was a good watch. Also, the one on Urban Meyer I haven't watched yet. So about the Florida team, so I'll have to watch that. But Andy's third one was mine. One on Reggie Bush. I would love to see that. It's basically poking the bear a little bit right now, but who cares? I mean, discuss him winning the Heisman, having to give it back, his NFL story with the New Orleans Saints. I think that would be very interesting. Playing with Drew Brees. I believe he was drafted the year that Brees made the switch from San Diego to New Orleans. So that would be interesting. Both of them coming in at the same time. I think that would be pretty cool. Kind of use that as the upbringing of Bush's NFL experience. So ultimately, to me, nothing beats Manti Te'o as of recent, as of like the last couple of years, just because of how insane that was. Nobody knew about catfishing in 2009. But yeah, also I would love to see a live look in of Brian Kelly's last hurrah speech at Notre Dame that lasted about 4 or 5 minutes. I would just love to be a fly on the wall in that room when he was delivering that speech. Probably a badass speech. He's still an awesome coach. So, but yeah, Reggie Bush is my answer. I had to throw a little Notre Dame fever in there too.
Nice. Those are all really good ones. The Reggie Bush one, especially now that he's suing the NCAA over losing his Heisman,
which he should.
Right. Yeah. I think he'll probably win the case. Well, I don't know.
He's not going to get the fucking trophy back, unfortunately. Like I don't think he's going to. I don't think the NCAA has their head so far up their own ass that they will never give him that trophy back. But he should 100% sue him, take him for everything he can.
Yeah, I agree. Mine is a bit more simple. All of yours I feel like would be highly entertaining from front to back, like thrilling. I just wanted a fun one, and I'm going with more recent. Coach O. The story is just so weird. He's just like this lovable, happy-go-lucky Southerner. The accent obviously unforgettable. I'm sure they'd have nice shots of him down there in the bayou as their B-roll. But just his come up from Ole Miss, then straight over to USC where he was under Pete Carroll, and then eventually lands at LSU. He turned the program. It kind of got like a bit corny. Like he shortened practices, started doing like all these Focus Friday type like themed days, which is. It's kind of like a high school or like Pee Wee thing. I feel like
it was every day was a theme. Was something. He had a name for every day. I remember that.
Yeah,
but I'd love to see a documentary on that. The year they won the title, that team was fucking insane.
Yeah, the ending of a documentary on him would just be crazy because he gets there pretty much instantly. Obviously it took. I think he was there for 2 years before they actually won the Natty, but that's really quick for a coach. Gets there, wins it, and then just sails off into the sunset. Like, hasn't made any attempt to coach anywhere else. Gets caught. Some people might not like this, but gets caught, with a bit of, sorority girl action in his bed during the middle of his divorce. Leaks the picture, and he just doesn't care. He's just living his life, probably fishing every day in the bayou.
His exit interview, where they're like, "You're gonna give me how much? All right, you want me to leave out? You want me to leave out when and which door?" He is incredible. All he's doing now is drinking on the beach and hitting on chicks. Yeah. There was a video that dropped of him, as the kids say these days, risen up some ladies on the beach. But yeah, he is an all-time character, Brian. That is an awesome answer, and you would 100% have to have subtitles on for any time he talked.
Yeah, I think we picked the two best coaches there in Leach and Orgeron in terms of like weird personalities to do a doc on. They're up there. Moving into our last one here. This is supposed to be fourth and short, but obviously we love our own ideas way too much here.
It's been how long since the three of us have got together and been able to do this? We're getting it out, fellas.
Might as well just throw Stetson Bennett in there too, by the way, for ducks.
That would be an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people go to school for 8 years or whatever the quote is.
Into our last one. Sorry. 2023 Heisman favorite and a Heisman dark horse. Andy, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay, the favorite I think is pretty easy, right? It's Caleb Williams. He has it all. I think it has to be looking to become the first repeat Heisman winner since I believe Archie Griffin. Is that correct? He's on a different level, man. I think barring injury or him deciding that he doesn't want to play for the team that gets the first pick in the NFL draft, he is the number one pick. So he's being compared to Patrick Mahomes, all these different guys. We saw him week one. He had that snap where he dropped it, picked it up, took one step, and off his back foot, threw the ball 50 yards through the air for a 70-yard touchdown. So, he's got a ton of talented receivers around him. My question for USC is the defense for Lincoln Riley coach team. Especially if Alex Grinch is his DC, it's always going to be the defense. But Caleb Williams is elite, man. He is on another level, and I think he is, at this point, obviously we have a full season to go. going into the season, seeing him play that week 0 game, he is far and away the Heisman favorite in my mind.
You got a dark horse as well?
My dark horse would be Joe Milton at Tennessee.
Ooh, I like it.
All right, so this dude is a freak athlete. He's got a rocket arm. He can throw the piss out of a football, ladies and gentlemen. The question is, can he take care of the football? Can he keep everything under control? It didn't really work out for him at Michigan, right? It feels like a million years ago when he was the starter at Michigan. He's been in the system now at Tennessee for a couple years. He backed up Hendon Hooker. He actually got to start a few games last season after Hooker went down. I think if he can keep himself under control, make good decisions, not turn the ball over, I think we could be seeing Joe Milton as a Heisman finalist at the end of the season. We've seen talent flashes. Can he put it all together now that he's going to have a full year as a starter? He's running the show in Knoxville. Guys, what can he do with it? I think he's very talented, but can he keep it together? He's my dark horse.
All right, Tom, give us your favorite and your dark horse.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with Andy. The favorite probably has to be Caleb Williams, but to throw in a different reason as to why, like Andy said, no back-to-back Heisman winner since Archie Griffin. This is a rarity in its own right. Lincoln Riley is his head coach. Very great offensive mind. Went over from Oklahoma to USC with Caleb Williams. Out of the 6 top Heisman vote getters last year, Williams is the only one of those players who is back. So the separation between him and the second closest in the odds right now, I don't even know who second is betting-wise, but it is Caleb Williams. It has to be. I'm not necessarily saying that's my pick, but that definitely has to be the favorite.
Sure.
The dark horse for me, Sam Hartman. I mean, come on. I got a little bias in there, but look, unbiasedly, 5 years at Wake Forest. The last 2 years, he's thrown 39 and 38 touchdowns, respectively, in each of the last 2 seasons. He turned A.T. Perry from nothing into an NFL caliber player, right? As good as Perry was. This guy has over 13,000 career passing yards already. And I'm looking at Notre Dame's schedule, and I'm not seeing too many elite defenses on their schedule this year. So it's already been rumored you have to throw him in the general discussion, not just the dark horse discussion. So I definitely think that would be my dark horse pick. Honorary mention is Marvin Harrison Jr. for dark horse outside quarterback.
I thought about going with Harrison Jr. as well for my dark horse. I'll start with my favorite, though. Don't want to skip ahead here. Yeah, Caleb Williams. I figured that was going to be a sweep, but I thought maybe someone would throw a curveball in there. There's just too much talent surrounding him. He had the right coach move to the team to help grow his talent. I mean, I don't know if there's a better QB coach in the nation right now than Lincoln Riley, or you got to at least put him top 3. We've already seen what he can do, the numbers he can put up, and I think he already had, like we talk about Heisman moments, I think he had a pre-Heisman moment last year in that Pac-12 championship game where he played injured for I think like 3/4 of the game, and it ended up he had like popped his hamstring, which is not something you want to be playing on by any means. So that's just one of those gutsy performances where if you're a team who watches tape, you're gonna surely watch that and be like, damn, this guy's probably going to fuck us up this year, as he probably will to most, if not all, the teams they play. And then for my dark horse, Tom, you're the only one who lives in a state that can gamble right now. And if I learned anything from gambling, it's
I can.
Illinois has gambling?
Oh, yeah, we've had it for 3 years.
Man,
4 years, brother.
I'm just left out in the dust here.
Yeah.
Well, as you both may know then, the number one rule in gambling is if you lose, you keep doubling down until you win. So I am repeating my dark horse from last year. That is Mr. Travion Henderson. Didn't go with Marvin Harrison Jr., but from the same team. This dude is an absolute monster. But the injury he suffered, it was like early to mid-September. I mean, you can't come back. You're basically out of the running if you miss, even 1 month at that point in the season. So he was pretty much instantly eliminated. Fracture and torn ligament, but he has had surgery. He has had 9 months to heal. And yeah, he's just one of the top running backs as a freshman in 2021. That talent didn't go anywhere. 1,248 yards and 15 rushing touchdowns that season on 183 carries. But what I think is going to help him the most here is that Ohio State loses C.J. Stroud, which when you lose your quarterback, who they have a lot of talent at wide receiver, but if you don't trust their QB as much, they are going to put the ball on the ground a lot more. He does not. They do not have the, luxury of having a double back system that's, 1,000-yard rushers like Michigan did with Edwards and Corum. So he's going to get the bulk of the yards there, and I think we're going to see a running back win it here. But this one will get to keep his Heisman Trophy. So Travion Henderson there is my dark horse. That will move us into our next segment, which is hotter and hottest takes, boys. Beginning of the season, we can say whatever we want here with no judgment because we don't know much. The analysts think they know a lot, but we'll see if we can top them here with some of our spicy takes here. Tom, I'm going to start with you on this one. There's going to get progressively hotter people, starting with a little bit of a candle flame heat there in the beginning, getting into the spiciest forest fire, engulfing everything with those last takes. So, Tom, take us through your first hot take here.
So before I get started, Brian, just to clarify, you want me to go hot, hotter, and then hottest, or are we all just doing hot?
No, all three. You.
Okay.
You're on the board here.
All right, hot. LSU makes the college football playoff.
Okay.
I think that they have a great Heisman candidate in Jaden Daniels. I think Brian Kelly brings LSU to the wire against Georgia, and I think that's enough to get them in. I think Georgia is their only loss on the season, and I think they'll take them down so close to the wire. I think they'll find a way to get in. That's my hot take. Hotter take. I was torn between two head coaches getting fired. Both of them, I think, will. Dino Babers for Syracuse and then Neil Brown for West Virginia. But my hotter take is that Neil Brown doesn't make Halloween. He does not make Halloween. When we do our spooky show, Neil Brown will no longer be the head coach at West Virginia. He will get canned. I'm serious. Look, you play your first 4 games before October. This is all in September, fellas. Penn State, top 10 team in the nation. This weekend, they're not beating them. Pittsburgh, tough opponent. Texas Tech, tough opponent. TCU made the national title game last year. I get it, they lost a lot of guys, but let's look at this from a reality perspective. They could start 0-4. This is not the standard at West Virginia. Brown has yet to win more than 6 games at West Virginia since taking over in 2019. This is his 5th year at the helm. He's 22-25. Get with the program. This is not the standard at West Virginia. You have to win football games, not lose them. That's my hotter take. Hottest take. Are you ready for this? Clue. Answer. Notre Dame beats USC on October 14th to ruin their chance at the college football playoff. Drop mic. They're at home in South Bend. Just saying. And we saw what happened with Clemson in 2020, which Andy backed me up on. I do remember that.
I did.
And then I think we beat them again last year at home. So I think we beat USC. I think we really do. With Caleb Williams starting. No injury designation here.
I like it. Do we know if that's going to be a night game? Do you guys typically schedule those 7:30s, or will that be a
game?
Ooh, okay.
I think the Ohio State game is a night game, and so is USC. I think USC is typically a 7:30 start.
That will be a must-watch television then.
Yeah.
All right, Andy, we will move on to you, starting with your hot, then your hottest. Sorry, hotter than your hottest. Nothing can be hotter than hottest.
Absolutely.
Hit us.
So this is Big Ten centric. I'm the Big Ten guy on the show. I've got 3 Big Ten takes for you. All right. First one, my hot take: Northwestern. They have not won a game since week 0 of last year when they beat Nebraska and Ireland. They going 1-11. They're going to do that again this year, boys. I'm predicting Northwestern goes 1-11 this year. All right. They start out the season on Sunday against Rutgers at Rutgers. Rutgers, give me Rutgers. UTEP comes to Evanston on Saturday, September 9th. That one I'm a little worried about. Okay. So, all right. So UTEP and Howard are the only games I'm worried about. The only games I'm giving them a chance to win. They've got Duke. They're not going to beat Duke. Minnesota's going to beat them. Penn State's going to kick their ass. Nebraska's going to beat them. Maryland's going to beat them. They don't have a chance against Iowa. Wisconsin's going to run them out of Madison. Purdue's going to beat them, and Illinois is going to run them the fuck out of Champaign in November. Northwestern sucks. They are a joke of a football program. They shouldn't even have a football program at this point with all the hazing and shit, which I know it's happening everywhere. They just happen to be the ones that got caught doing it. But really, really bad optics for Northwestern all offseason. You want even worse optics? Watch them fucking play a football game this fall. It's going to be rough, boys. Northwestern's going 1-11. My hotter take, and this one, Tom, you're going to like this. Ohio State is going to lose 3 games this year. Ooh. One of those is going to be when they visit South Bend on September 23rd and Notre Dame beats them. I also think Penn State is going to take them out on October 21st, and I've got Michigan taking them out in the game on November 25th. 9-3 for Ohio State. I'm not sold on Kyle McCord until he proves that he belongs. And obviously, if he's at Ohio State, he's probably good. Okay, I'm not doubting that the guy can be good. He has not started a game yet. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is fucking amazing, but I am not sold on Ohio State this year, guys. I do not think they're the best team in the Big Ten. I think Michigan's better than them. I've got them dropping 3 games this year. And my hottest take of all, I've got to show some bias here, ladies and gentlemen. Illinois will win the Big Ten West and play in their first Big Ten championship game, okay? It starts on Saturday with me in the building versus Toledo. I think, let me just say games they've got I would say that I'm most worried about. September 16th, you got Penn State and Champaign. That's going to be really tough. You got to play Wisconsin October 21st. You got to go to Iowa. I think realistically, you say they lose those 3 games. I think they've got a really good chance to win every other one. That would put them at 9-3. I think they are just as good as any of these other teams in the Big Ten West. I know Wisconsin brought in Luke Fickell, who's an awesome, awesome coach. They got Tanner Mordecai, who is miles better than Graham Mertz. They're going to be running a new offense, but I'm not 100% sold. The shit like that just doesn't get fixed overnight. Iowa. Everybody's super high on Iowa. They got Cade McNamara. Again, I'm not believing that this offense is just fixed overnight when they still have Brian Ferentz as the offensive coordinator. Those are my hot takes. Illinois going to the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State's going 9-3, and Northwestern's going 1-11. Boys, Big Ten takes. Fucking AHOP23 on Twitter. Fucking hit me with it. Let's go.
The hottest takes in the land right there. All right, for mine, starting with my hot take here, a similar one to Tom's hot take with the team making it to the CFP. I'm going to go with FSU. I just like I think FSU is actually kind of back. I think the entire state of Florida has been waiting for either Miami or FSU or both to come back. It's been about, what was the Jameis years? It's been almost a decade since
14,
FSU. Yeah,
right?
14.
Almost a decade since they've been relevant. So they've been waiting, and I think they've got a really good squad to do it. They've got probably one of the best defensive talents in the nation with Verse, and then at QB. Oh my God, the name is slipping my mind now. Who wants to help me? Jordan
Travis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost said Travis, but then I was thinking Travis Hunter, and I was like, no, that's Deion's
No, it's not.
boy.
That's Deion's boy.
boy.
But what's his name? His last name is Jordan Travis. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't remember the order. This man's got 2 first names. But that is my hot take right there. FSU brings himself back onto the pedestal of semi-elite schools, makes it to their first CFP in a long time.
Ooh.
My hotter take here is that, Tom, you'll like this one. And give you one that you'll like. I'm going to give you another one that you're going to love. Neither Michigan running back, that's Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, their top 2, is going to have a 1,000-yard season.
Oh, I fucking love that.
You like that?
Inject
Wow.
that right here.
Yeah, I like that, Kirk. I like that.
We've got Blake Corum coming off an almost 1,500 yard season, and Edwards, he was shy of 1,000 last year at 991, but that's close enough to say that was a dual back system that was 1,000-yard plus with the way they played. But I think with the way that Harbaugh is going to miss these first 3 games, they're going to try and just play super conservatively, rest everyone. So I don't think they're going to eat up big yards. I think maybe they'll give them half the game in these first 3 games. They're not going to rack up enough yards to get that Heisman level yardage there, and I don't think they're going to eat against teams like Ohio State. So I think they both fall short. Will it happen? Likely not, but I think Tom is with me here. Andy sounds like he's with me as well, that they would love to see that one happen. Here is, I had to come up with a super spicy hot one here. Oh my, this is going to sound so stupid. Neither Georgia, Alabama, or LSU will make the college football playoff this year.
Oh shit.
And this is how it's going to happen. Alabama, I mean, you can't lose a QB as good as Bryce Young and go to, who's it, Milrow, I believe.
Yeah, it's Jalen Milrow. Think about this.
Right.
They struggled. They couldn't beat Georgia with Bryce Young, who was the #1 pick in the NFL draft. And now you have this guy who is, when he did come in last year, did not look that great.
Yeah, I think he is phenomenal on his feet. As a QB with an arm, though, he is not so great. So my losses there for Alabama is to Texas, and big upset here. Auburn fans are going to love this. They beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, which is at Auburn this year. Maybe we'll see a bit of a field rush as well. LSU is going to lose to FSU on this Sunday. I do think LSU is probably the deeper team here, but anything happens, anything can happen in the first game of the season, especially at a neutral site here, which is much closer to FSU, and definitely has a bigger fan base locally than LSU. So that place is probably going to be packed with Knowles fans. They'll also lose to Alabama. You'll love this one, Florida. I don't know why, but
Ooh.
Florida LSU is always an interesting game to me, and I think that's going to be the one that knocks them out, keeps them out of the West title race there. And then on the East, this team has the easiest, which is why this is such a stupid take, but that's why it's the hottest take. Georgia, the East is so much weaker, but I think they're going to lose to Ole Miss, who is always a wild card. They're ranked number 22. I think they're probably a tiny bit better than that, but nonetheless. And also Tennessee. Andy, you're pulling for our boy Joe Milton to be a dark horse Heisman here. I hope he pulls it in this game and destroys Georgia to make this dream hot take come true. Because that would essentially put Georgia out of the East title with those two losses.
I'd love to fucking see that, by the way. Two of my very close friends that I used to live with are big Georgia fans. I've got an extra ticket for the Atlanta game. And I invited one of them to it, and he's busy. He can't come. And I said, "Oh no, I get it. You just can't bear to see a team better than Georgia play." And he said, "Oh, you figured me out." Has Ole Miss, have they named a starter? Is it Dart or is it Sanders? Do we know that yet?
I haven't seen anything official. Maybe like in some Ole Miss forums somewhere that they've got the news, but
this podcast's favorite quarterback, Spencer Sanders.
They still haven't announced it as of 9 hours ago.
Okay, yeah.
Lane Kiffin's wait until the 11th
Competitive
hour.
advantage.
That's true. You gotta keep your cards tight to your chest. But that will end that segment and move us into our games of the week. It is shots and chasers, starting early here, noon. We just talked about him very briefly when I couldn't remember the name of FSU's quarterback. But we have TCU taking on primetime steam. We got Colorado here. Andy, we'll start with you. This team could be real, or they could be just an absolute mess. Who wins this game here?
I just don't even know kind of what you can expect from Colorado yet, right? Their roster overhaul is just something you've really never seen before in college football, right? We know the famous video of Dion meeting with the Colorado roster for the first time. And I'm bringing my luggage, and it's Louis. He said, if you want to hit that transfer portal, you gonna go ahead. So they had, I think it's over 80 transfers. It's like either 82 or 83 transfers. It's the most all time in 1 year. So you don't really know. Like, there's just so much turnover. A lot of people are saying it's one of the worst rosters in the Power Five. Obviously, they do have some talent with Travis Hunter. He brings over Shadur Sanders, his son, to be the quarterback. He excelled at Jackson State. So if you look in 21 and 22 as a starting quarterback, he went for over 3,000 yards both years. Last year, he completed 70% of his passes for 3,732 yards, 40 touchdowns to 6 interceptions for a 160.4 rating. The kid can play. Can he play at this level is what we're going to find out. There's questions about the Colorado offensive line. Are they going to be able to hold up? This is a ranked TCU team that they're playing. By the way, a TCU team that is coming off an appearance in the national title game. Do they have a championship game hangover? Do they start slow? TCU's favored by 20.5, so 3 touchdowns. I think TCU wins the game. I don't know if we can accurately assess Colorado and the job Deion Sanders is doing after just this year. I feel like it is such a complete rebuild that this isn't something that's going to be done overnight. So I think there's going to be a few bumps in the road for Colorado this year. There's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some figuring some shit out. I'm going to take TCU in this game, though.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, TCU will win by a blowout margin. Unfortunately for Deion Sanders, first game as the Buffaloes head coach for Colorado. But how will TCU look after losing a mouthful of players to the NFL draft? I mean, look who they lost, fellas. Max Duggan, Kendre Miller, the running back, 2 top receivers, and Quentin Johnston and Darius Davis. They lost their starting center, Steve Avila. They lost D. Winters. They lost Trey Tomlinson. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Redshirt junior Chandler Morris makes his first start. Amani Bailey's back in the backfield. You still have a veteran offensive line and 7 senior starters on defense. Ultimately, I think TCU's defense is what will carry them in this game. Johnny Hedges is back. He led the team in tackles last year. They still have him. And they still have their interception leader, Bud Clark, from last year, had 5 picks in 2022. For Jackson State, For Colorado, I should say, they have 7 transfers from Jackson State, one of them being quarterback Shadur Sanders. And I'll look at it this way for you. I trust Sonny Dykes. Even if they don't win by 20.5, I still think they win by a very sizable margin. So I do have TCU coming out on top here comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically in the same exact boat as you guys with this one. They're just too much of a wild card, Andy. I think this is probably the stat you're looking at, or maybe it's just another wild one that's similar number. The Colorado team has 87 new players on their roster.
Yep, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
And in terms of returning starters, 3. So that type of turnaround, I don't think you can. You can have all the talent in the world, but I don't even think a team like Alabama under Nick Saban can just bring in 87 new players.
No.
And turn around like a top winning squad with that. So I'm going to TCU here. It's just the obvious pick against this questionable Colorado team that we'll have to wait and see what happens here. As for the chaser, we have Purdue taking on Fresno State. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. Who's winning this game?
Well, Jake Haener is gone for Fresno State, but Cam Lockridge is still there. Their elite corner, 5 picks last season. Fresno State, they did lose 4 games last year, but they are a competitive football team. That's why Purdue is only favored by 3.5 at home. First-year head coach with Ryan Walters. Purdue lost their quarterback. Aiden O'Connell got drafted by the Raiders. Charlie Jones got drafted by the Bengals. Payne Durham, who the Bucs stole from the Giants. Your fun right there. But they have Texas transfer Hudson Card coming in. He is the new quarterback in town for the Boilermakers. Devin Mockabee is back. 9 touchdowns last year. Their leading returning receiver outside of A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry played for Wake Forest. Color difference there. T.J. Sheffield, their leading returning receiver, is back. They have an experienced offensive line. I have Purdue edging out Fresno State by a slim margin.
All right, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a lot of new for Purdue. Great rhyme by me there. So you got the Illinois defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, took the job over the summer. He is now in West Lafayette, so it's going to be his debut. Little surprised to see them only favored by, I think the line is currently at 4.5 over a team like Fresno State, but they did lose a lot. They bring in the Texas transfer Hudson Card. They have, I believe it's Graham Harrell is their offensive coordinator, so they're going to be running the air raid. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot, putting the ball in Hudson Card's hands and having him spread it out. I'm going to take Purdue to win here. I think you're going to have the emotion of the coach's debut against a lesser opponent. So I think the Boilermakers get it done at Ross-Ade.
Yeah, sorry to anyone watching. I'm gonna try and keep these a little short because we're doing these on weekdays now. Pretty late for me, later than last year, so I don't have as much time as typical. Yeah, I'm going Purdue as well. Listen, it's defending Big Ten West champions. Yes, it's first year coach with Walters, but Hudson Card, I don't think he was terrible. Texas is just getting a lot of top talent now at the QB space, especially with NIL. So he had to go. Got bounced around, but I think he still got quality there. And I think Purdue, they've kept enough under Grant Harrell's QB focused system here to have Card eat up this Fresno State Bulldogs defense. So I'm going Purdue as well. Moving into our 3:30, we have Washington taking on Boise State. Andy, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's Michael Penix Jr. He's back for the Huskies after his incredible year last year. They've got a preseason All-American wide receiver in Rome Odunze, and just a lot of talent at the skill positions. The Broncos, they bring back Taylor Green at quarterback, who last year took over for Hank Bachmeier. Hank Bachmeier now at Louisiana Tech, which was weird to see during week 0 they were playing. Boise State brings back George Halani, standout linebacker DJ Schramm as well. I'm going to take Washington here. I trust Penix Jr. more than I trust Taylor Green. I'm not going to say that I've watched every Taylor Green snap, but I have seen him play. I remember him coming in, taking over for Bachmeier last year. And, he's mobile. He's a big guy. He's athletic. I think he can make some plays, but Penix was just outstanding last year. And I look for him to do more of the same for the Huskies this year. So I'm going to take Washington in this one.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, my problem with Boise State is we don't know what we're going to get from Taylor Green through the air. We know he's a threat on the ground as well, as Andy was starting to allude to. 10 rushing touchdowns last year. George Halani is back. Those two combined for 20 rushing touchdowns on the ground. But yeah, MP Jr. is a Heisman candidate, 4,600 yards for the Huskies last year. He gets big body Romeo Odunze back, and Jalen McMillan. Both were 1,000-yard receivers in 2022. The Huskies only lost 2 games last year. they have some quality wins too. They beat Oregon on the road and they beat Texas in the bowl game. Give me Washington.
Yeah, you guys both kind of hit the nail on the head here with Green. It's one of those talented quarterbacks who could be super special, but you just don't know enough, especially in the arm scenario. I guess if that's the case, you want to go against a team like a Pac-12 or a Big 12 team where you can still dominate some offenses because the defenses are not as tight, let's say. But yeah, Washington returns, who some think is at least a Heisman pick here, or Heisman finalist at least, Michael Penix Jr., who probably is a top 5 QB in the entire nation this year. So yeah, I don't think Boise State's that bad, so I'm a little perplexed by the 14.5 point line here, but I think Washington does squeak out the win here. And then moving into the 3:30 chaser, this one spreads a little bit bigger, I think. We have Indiana taking on Ohio State. Andy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, this one I don't think should be close at all. It's number 3 Ohio State against Indiana, who is going to be down there with Northwestern at the bottom of the Big Ten. They're just not good. Indiana's really never been relevant in football, and they really never will be. I think Tom Allen's a good coach, but just not a lot going on in Hoosier land. So I'm taking Ohio State. I mean, they're favored by 30 points. You're going to see Kyle McCord start the game at quarterback. You're going to see Devin Brown get some snaps as well. Basically, get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. If you don't get it to him, Emeka Egbuka will be there. He's proved to be a huge threat on the outside as well. And you got Travion Henderson, like Tom mentioned earlier, Brian mentioned it earlier. Travion earlier, and Mayan Williams is going to be getting some carries as well. But I expect this one to be all Ohio State.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ryan Day just recently named Kyle McCord as the starting quarterback. He is really the last domino they're waiting on to fall here to find out if they will be a CFP contender this season. Mayan Williams is back, as you mentioned, Andy, 14 tutties. Travion Henderson, Brian McCardle's dark horse Heisman candidate, is back. Marvin Harrison Jr. took the country by steam last year. Outstanding year, 14 touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka's back, another 1,000-yard double-digit touchdown player. Julian Fleming in the slot. Cade Stover, tight end up the seam, can make some good catches for you. You got Tommy Eichenberg back on defense. Jack Sawyer leads the pass rush for them. The Buckeyes are loaded on both sides of the ball. Indiana had a quarterback problem all last year, got blown out by Ohio State. The Hoosiers lost 8 out of their last 9 games. You're right, Andy. There is not much cooking in Hoosier land. And, I mean, the only thing that might be cooking is their team at the end of Saturday. Ohio State wins, and they cover that 30-point spread.
Yeah, I mean, this one is mainly on here because, I mean, the time frame, the 3:30 slot was not as loaded as others, but also I think most people want to see here how this wide receiver duo does without Mr. C.J. Stroud. That's a big talent to lose. If you're a wide receiver, you got to hate it, but also, like, if this makes sense, they'll kind of look better if they go off this season. I think it's probably the best wide receiver duo in the nation, Harrison Jr. and Egbuka. Tom, you're a stats dynamo here, so you can correct me if that is wrong. Just give me a little slap on the face here, but I think they're probably the top duo. And then, like you said, that running back duo also is just going to tear up on the ground game. So that's just way too much firepower, and I kind of just wanted like a fun game on here to see just an absolute blowout week 1. Tommy, your team gave it to us week 1 with that, or week 0 with that 42-30 win. So let's run it back and see maybe a 50 burger on old Indiana here. Moving to 7:30, we got a split here. These are both night games. Our chaser will be a Sunday game, but our Saturday night game is Little Carolina Showdown here. Battle of the North and South. South Carolina taking on North Carolina. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. Who is the better Carolina?
This is going to be a fun game. I'm glad you put this on the shots, Brian. UNC 2.5-point favorites on the road, ranked 21. Why? Drake May is once again a Heisman candidate. He is a gun slinger. 38 touchdowns last year through the air, 4,300 pass yards. He's also a threat on the ground. Had 7 touchdowns there. They need to improve on defense so UNC isn't in a track meet every week like last year. Remember how last year ended for them, guys? They were on a 4-game losing streak. For South Carolina, Spencer Rattler, back for another year. He threw 12 picks last year. Didn't have the best year. Their defense lost Darius Rush. I mean, I think Rattler will improve, but he's not Drake May level. Marcellus Dial is back on their defense. So South Carolina is hot and cold for me. Yes, the Cocks are home, but I'm going with the Tar Heels here in this one.
All right, Andy.
For me, guys, it's the quarterback battle. It's Drake May versus Spencer Rattler. I think Tom hit it on the head. We were talking about Caleb Williams earlier and how he's kind of on that pedestal. It's Drake May right behind him. As far as what we've been hearing from NFL scouts and the buzz he's been getting, he's got an opportunity to get onto that same tier as Caleb Williams is. And I do believe he already is one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now. But again, the question is, it's North Carolina's defense. Is Drake May going to have to score 45 points to win the game, 45-42, because North Carolina can't stop anybody? That's the only thing that worries me, because, we've seen Rattler play at a high level. We've also seen him not live up to that high level. So it's kind of, what are you going to get from him? But I think he is very capable of leading the South Carolina offense to put up some points on North Carolina. But I'm going to give me the Tar Heels. Strictly basing that off of the quarterback matchup. I like Drake May better than Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, I'm going to go UNC, excuse me, here as well. Listen, Rattler's just one of those guys who didn't pan out. I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's a terrible person. Right. Seems like a nice kid, but he just doesn't have the talent to go to the next level. Drake May's only a redshirt sophomore, I think, and he, just looking at him in the brief time that we've seen, does have that. So, Mac Brown is a pretty grounded head coach. Nothing super fancy, but they still put up the numbers in the yards. So, I think this is going to be a good team, but like you said, Andy, that defense really needs to at least step up one level from last year to have any shot of doing anything serious, because they were just Swiss cheese last year.
Dude, I mean, they've been Swiss cheese for fucking 5 years, maybe longer than that. Like, the entire Mac Brown tenure, they have sucked on defense.
Yeah,
like, I'll have to look it up. I won't do it now because I know we're on a time crunch, but I'll bring that for next week. I'll figure out how many points they've given up over the last 5 fucking years, what they're averaging. Because it's not just a 1-year thing. Like, what is this? The 3rd year we've been doing this show together, 3rd or 4th year. Let's just say the entire time we've been doing this show, I have mentioned multiple times how shitty UNC's defense is, and this is not a new thing.
Yeah, I think I was being a little nice by saying just last year was.
You're a lot nicer than I am, Brian. It just is what it is.
Got to play good cop, bad cop. But yeah, I'll just end it. But when we're comparing the two, Spencer Rattler in his career so far, 58 touchdowns, 24 interceptions. That's not great. Got to start off week 1 with the mention of touchdown to interception ratio. Hate that ratio for me. So
big ratio guy.
I am a big ratio guy. I am going with the Tar Heels here. And then if you can make it to Sunday Fun Day here for FSU versus LSU, get a little brunch in and then get ready for probably the biggest game of the weekend, regardless of what kind of fan you are. Because we have number 5 going up against number 8. We have FSU taking on LSU on ABC. Andy, who do you have in this powerhouse matchup?
Well, first of all, I cannot think of a better way to spend my Sunday than starting the day with Northwestern versus Rutgers and ending the day with LSU versus FSU. Like, well, you are getting the entire spectrum of college football on Sunday. We've got 5 straight days of college football, man. I am so excited. And I think game of the weekend, guys, potential game of the weekend, most hype for sure.
Yeah,
this is a top 10 matchup. It's 8 versus 6. You have Brian is claiming FSU is back. This is kind of feels like if Norvell's going to do anything with Florida State, it's got to be now, right? He's been there for a few years. There's been a lot of disappointments on the LSU side of the ball. A lot of people did not expect them to do as well as they did last year. And I think it just speaks to how good of a coach Brian Kelly is. Whether you like him or not, the man can fucking coach football. It is what it is. You had last year's game, 24-23, Florida State getting that thriller of a victory in New Orleans. I think we see another super close game. Jaden Daniels had an awesome year last year for LSU. What can he do on Sunday? I expect him to use his feet, expect him to try to get the ball in his playmakers' hands. We got over under a 58.5, fellas. I want to see some points. I want to see some fireworks on Sunday. Give me the over and give me the Tigers.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, this is Jaden Daniels against Jordan Travis, right? LSU on the road, going to Central Florida area, 2.5-point favorites. Daniels 17 touchdowns last year. Man, he is good. He is really good. He's good through the air. He's good on the ground. And that was just a small sample size last year. We're just getting a taste. That was just an appetizer last year, ladies and gentlemen. I think their running back, Noah Cain, really needs to take his best foot forward Malik Neighbors is back, 1,000-yard receiver. Yes, he did lose 2 fumbles against FSU last year, but hey, Neighbors is really good. Harold Perkins Jr., 7.5 sacks last year. They did lose B.J. Ojolari on defense, but this FSU game is their biggest test outside of Alabama. It's tough. They lost FSU 24-23 in the opener last year. The O-line gave up 4 sacks. Their defense didn't get any pressure on Jordan Travis. Travis is a field general, as Andy likes to refer to his old quarterback in Tommy DeVito, who is now an NFL quarterback, by the way.
Patrick,
Travis,
practice squad.
Still. Yeah, look, I like Travis. I like Trey Benson and Treshaun Ward. Solid on the ground. Both averaged 6 yards a clip last year. Johnny Wilson is back. Pokey Wilson as well. Both receiving threats. They have Jared Verse, who's back, potential first-round pick, coming off a 9.5 sack season. But there's 2 factors here that I look at. Factor number 1, the coaching. Brian Kelly is just better. That's the way it is, like it or not. Secondly, when in doubt, you always pick the SEC. Go Tigers.
What a catch.
Wow. I feel like I can't start the season with a sweep here for the biggest game on the slate, so I'm going to go FSU here. Not just because this was part of my hottest takes. Like I said, I think LSU is the better team here, but I've been forced into a corner by you two.
Blame us. Yeah, blame us.
Listen, the QB matchup is actually going to be incredible.
Right.
Definitely. I don't know why we were even questioning it, that this is the game of the week. I mean, just listening to you guys talk about it, I mean, it's clear this is going to be the game of the week. Jordan Travis has leaps and bounds improved. And same thing with Jaden Daniels coming over to play at LSU for Brian Kelly. And for me, though, one of the top players, I think one of the most dangerous players in the entire nation here, is D lineman Jared Verse for FSU. 9 sacks last season on limited plays. I don't think he's one of those, who's going to get into the Heisman conversation, J.J. Watt style or anything, but he is a top player here. I like the 2.5 point spread. I think that's super on point, I guess. I would maybe even put it at 1.5 because I think this game is going to be tight till the very end. I'm so excited to watch this game. Sunday fun day, boys. We're starting week 1 and ending week 1 with a hell of a matchup. So that is going to wrap up our games of the week, our shots and chasers. Thank you everyone for watching. That was a long one. Try to keep it short.
We had to get our takes off. Like it's
Yeah.
bound to happen.
Absolutely.
It's week 1 for us too. All right.
Yeah, we couldn't do it.
We'll rein it in for week 2. We'll make it shorter for you.
We had
Brian.
too much to talk about. We're winded. We're winded here. But
Absolutely.
that'll do it. Like and subscribe if you can. We love it. Down in the description as well. See if I get this right on week 1. Boom, we got it. Andy's links down in the description as well. Boom, this side, Tom's links will be down in the description as well. Thank you for watching, everyone. Enjoy week 1's games, and welcome back to the 2023 season of college football.